A strengthening US dollar means that you're going to see a lot more creative flavors of ice cream.
A stronger dollar will translate into more creative ice cream flavors.
Yes. So a rising dollar means that you're going to see a lot more creative flavors of ice cream and a little bit less of your plain old vanilla.
Okay.
Let's get to it. Welcome to the knock-on effect. This is where we start with the thing you know and end up in a weird place. I'm Justine Underhill, and joining us today we have our on-the-money guesser, Alex Rosenberg.
Hello.
And we have our professor joining us, as usual, from an undisclosed location, Roger Hurst.
Hello, everyone.
And it seems today, Professor, you are in the midst of a jungle, deep in the jungle.
Oh, you took a nice walk somewhere and you've gotten pretty far afield.
So if I'm in a jungle wearing this sort of outfits that I've been wearing recently, presumably I'm going to be a little bit on the warmer end of the scale.
Yes, you are smoking a pipe, however, still, so it can't be too warm.
No, it could be deciduous. I don't know. Could
Well,
be
this actually relates to where we're going, so we'll get there. You'll find out where he actually is. Okay, so after the main part of the show, we'll have our friend Jake join us for our new segment, Chart Attack, where he'll tell us where the smart money is really going. So you'll want to stick around for that. All right, so we have the dollar, rising dollar leading to unusual flavors of ice cream. The professor and I will, as usual, guide you on this journey, get you from point A to point Z. Do you want to take a guess as how we'll get there?
So as the dollar gets stronger, it becomes more attractive for other countries to export goods to the U.S. So maybe the far-flung parts of the world will start sending their not crazy, but for us it's a little unusual. And so we'll get all these, what kind of ice cream are they having in Thailand? We'll find out because they'll ship those flavors to us.
Professor, what grade do you give that?
Yes, well, it's a tricky one to give anything remotely high. I think there's a lot of plagiarism from past episodes and getting locked into the export there. So I think, yeah, we're going to start with a D minus.
Okay, you have a lot of room to climb up.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get a little bit of background with what's going on with the dollar. Okay, so the dollar has been rising. It's up 3% since January. This just basically means that there's more demand for US dollars. And that's breaking the trend that we've seen for well over a year where the dollar was pretty much in this downturn. Okay. And that brings us to the first knock-on effect. So a stronger US dollar has a significant impact on other countries. So you were a little bit right in that, in where you were going with your guess, but this has a particularly hard impact on emerging markets, developing economies, least developed markets. Pretty much all of the countries in the world are affected by this. So, Professor, what's going on there?
I think the dollar you can think of as being the alpha asset. It sort of sits at the apex of the financial system. So people, and particularly emerging markets, will, if they can, borrow in dollars. Particularly as we've obviously come off a period where dollar borrowing has been incredibly cheap. So you've just got this position where a lot of countries have borrowed in dollars, and when the dollar starts to move, then the numbers of local currencies that you need to either pay off the debt or just to finance the debt starts to go up. So it's just a dynamic that works against you when the dollar's strengthening.
Right. So basically, as the dollar strengthens, if a country or another country has borrowed money and it's in the US dollar, that currency the dollar rises, they have to pay back more in their local currency, so they're in a tight spot.
And a lot of these countries borrow in dollars because it's easier to convince people that, we'll pay you back in dollars, don't worry about all the weird currency stuff that we could do.
Right, exactly. And so that's sort of, it's the easiest way, or some of the easiest way to get international financing, so if they want people outside. And so this has been happening all over the world. A lot of countries have been borrowing in US dollars, but this is the knock-on effect where we go to an unusual place. Yes. So we're gonna check out an unusual island. You seem very excited.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it Madagascar?
Very good.
Yes.
So this is, wow. How
Roger,
did you...
come on. Give me some love on that.
Yeah, okay, I think, you're crawling your way up towards a C there, but I think it's the finished article that we'll really start judging you by.
All right, fine.
Okay, so I want to give a few quick facts about Madagascar. Madagascar, 4th largest island in the world, home of the lemur. And Madagascar is one of those countries that's heavily reliant on dollar-denominated debt. What are some of the stats here, Professor?
Yeah, there's been a recent IMF report. I think it was actually came out a couple of years ago, but we've seen Madagascar increase its debt levels, particularly between 2007 and 2014, quite significantly. And so now we've got, since the dollar has surged over that 2014 period, the IMF considers that this has been the main driver, that their debt to GDP ratio has spiked by 10%. So this is a country which is vulnerable to and has already experienced some of the vulnerabilities to a fast-moving and fast-rising dollar.
Right, and so debt and government financing has been particularly key in Madagascar right now because the country has been actually pummeled by several cyclones over the past few years. 250,000 people displaced, areas completely destroyed. And so that has a huge impact on the country. And then that impacts the government financing. So right now, the government, because of rising rates, because of a stronger dollar, that impacts the rebuilding efforts that are going on in Madagascar. I do want to bring in Exhibit A. Thank you, Scott. Perfect. Okay, so this is...
it's a vanilla bean.
A vanilla bean from Madagascar. Careful, it's really pungent.
That's really nice.
A really
That's
wonderful
That's
aroma.
delicious, yeah.
And so 80% of the world's vanilla beans come from Madagascar.
Now, what is it? Is it something about the specific island that facilitates the growth of these beans?
This gets a little bit dark. Are you ready for this?
It's not a Justine knock-on effect unless it gets dark. Go ahead.
Okay, so these were cultivated actually originally in Mexico. And there was a special bee that would pollinate them. And so you would have these beautiful flowers. Vanilla beans grow really well elsewhere in the world, but you just don't have the bee to do the pollination. So Madagascar, labor costs are very cheap. And so people pollinate them by hand. The flower.
Oh my God.
And so that's pretty much why that market's developed. It's also a really great place for growing.
Is that why they're so expensive too? Because there's so much labor that goes into it?
There is a huge amount of labor that goes into it. That's part of it, but there's also this shortage of vanilla, which we will get to. So actually, Professor, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in the vanilla market?
Yeah, the vanilla market, it's gone absolutely crazy. And again, this is another one of these ones where we're looking at prices of vanilla that compared to some precious metals. In fact, what we've seen is after all these bad harvests and all the other things, whereas 5 years ago, this stuff was trading at $20 a kilogram, this has now reached as high as $515 a kilogram. So funnily enough, this is yet another of these markets which is being massively impacted by, the black market, by thieves, by basically people trying to steal the output from a lot of the farmers, and this is happening at night time, so there's a lot of issues coming through.
Yeah, so basically, because the thieves are stealing vanilla beans from these farms, the farmers are harvesting the vanilla beans early before the thieves can get to them.
Oh.
And so it's creating this really low quality vanilla bean that's on the market right now.
Because you develop probably a lot of the flavor in the last time.
So it needs to stay until July to really develop the richness of the flavor. And thieving has become a really huge problem. Actually, I have a quote here from a recent Time article. So at the moment, vanilla thieves face 3 to 4 years in prison. As far as Lydia Soa, she's a vanilla farmer in Madagascar, is concerned, that's not enough. She wants a life sentence. Quote, "You invest all your life in growing the vanilla. Stealing it is the same thing as killing someone."
Okay, well, I'm not appointing her for Supreme Court justice anytime soon, but I get her point.
You see the gravity of the situation, and it's just like how expensive this has gotten. And because it's gotten so expensive, companies have been looking for other options, artificial vanilla and synthetic flavors.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump the gun, but like when you have Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream, is there really?
There is, there is actual vanilla in Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream. It depends on which one you get, but they do use real vanilla beans.
Okay.
in a lot of them. I actually went to the grocery store this morning and was looking through all the different options.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. And actually, we have some more information on that. What do we know about the artificial vanilla market, Professor?
Well, it's been going around for absolutely years, and I mean, the places that have been getting it from: beaver pelvis glands, coal tar, wood, and cow feces, or cow dung, are the kind of the old, tried and tested ones. And then our good old friend, as we've found in previous episodes, is basically synthesized from petrochemicals. It's called guaiacol.
Yeah, and so basically that's using vanilla. And so for short, how this works is vanilla has over 250 different aromas. You
Yeah,
can smell
super
that.
complex.
And one of those flavors is vanillin.
Yes.
So not vanilla.
Right.
And that is what we use to make the synthetic vanilla flavor.
Right.
I mean, basically...
It's also found in oak.
Oh, yes, it is. And so, but that's why, as the professor mentioned, we use paper, we use all sorts of different products to create this vanillin. So that's where...
But that's one of 200 flavors. So that's like the Welch's grape flavor.
Right.
It's like
that's what I was going to get to. It's the difference between strawberries, eating those, and strawberry flavors. The difference between like the equal and sugar. You absolutely taste the difference. But it's funny because so much of the vanilla that we eat is just the vanillin or the synthetic stuff. People lose a lot of this really wonderful aroma and the wonderful flavors in the actual vanilla. Here's the wrinkle, okay?
There are a lot of wrinkles.
There's a lot of wrinkles in the vanilla bean, but there's even more. So at the same time this vanilla shortage was going on, Nestle and other companies, they followed actually Nestle's lead, said that they were only going to use all natural products. So they can't use that vanillin because it's synthetic.
Okay.
So they can't label their products all natural. Actually, Hershey's came out with a release saying that they're beginning a transition to simple and easy to understand ingredients. So you have these massive companies, Nestle, Hershey, Mars, using vanilla beans en masse. And so that's created a pretty inelastic demand as customers want this all these all natural products.
Now, so, and as these prices are going up and up, I understand how in Madagascar, was attractive because it has this nice climate for it, and also the labor is inexpensive. But as the prices go up and up and up, I mean, can't Mexico start making vanilla again? Can't all these other countries?
It's a 3 to 4 year process just to get to this vanilla bean right here.
Wow.
And so it's not something that countries can ramp up quickly. There's a huge amount of investment and time, and especially if you're having cheap labor pollinating it by hand, that's just not really feasible to take all that on for 3 to 4 years before
you
you
need to raise some bonds denominated in dollars.
Yes, you would. Anyway, as you know where this is going, these price hikes have had a huge impact on ice cream makers. So the makers of these wonderful ice creams that we have, and these are actually using vanilla from Madagascar.
I like that they call it vanilla bean rather than
vanilla. It makes you clear that this is like the real stuff.
Yeah.
So there are ice cream parlors from New York to London that are now taking vanilla off of their menu. This is happening, yes.
Oh, because they don't want to use the artificial flavors.
They don't want to use the artificial flavors. I mean, these are the artisanal ice cream parlors.
Right.
But this is happening. There are countless stories that I've read of people complaining about the price hikes. And I actually have a quote here from the BBC. They said that Julie Fisher, who founded an artisanal ice cream maker, Ruby Violet, 7 years ago, she said that vanilla was off the menu in her London-based outlets, quote, for the foreseeable future, because she can't afford the thousands of pounds it would cost. So this is really impacting ice cream makers. And so a lot of these ice cream makers are looking for more creative ways to market their ice creams. So they're not using so much of this bland, plain old vanilla, except I don't know why.
But that's the thing. That's what's so ironic about this story is that we think of vanilla, it literally means like vanilla. Like they had a
plain old vanilla.
Yeah. But actually, in the future, we might see vanilla as this luxury product. And the watered down vanilla that's just made from vanillin is pretty boring. Yeah. But vanilla this is not a boring flavor in any way.
It's the artificial vanilla that in some ways gives vanilla a bad name.
We might see it as this, luxury, high-end ice cream. And people in the past, it's almost like how lobster went from a really low-end food to a really high-end food. Oh, God, I should have saved that for another knock-on effect. Vanilla is another thing where it might go from a low-end food to a high-end food in the future.
It actually started out as really high-end in the 1500s, moved to low-end.
Well, like running water was really high-end in the 1500s.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess you could say everything was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you have any takeaways here?
Oh, we're done already?
Yeah,
Oh,
this is where.
Well,
where
tell me some of the other exciting new. By the way, I'm going to try this. This one is quite good. But I'm going to try this one.
Oh,
tell me some of the exciting new flavors.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of different. I mean,
just give me an excuse to eat this ice cream on camera.
Yeah, enjoy. No, there are actually a lot of ice cream brands are experimenting with.
This is really. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
This is amazing. They
try?
really. This really captures the vanilla flavor in a way that this one doesn't. Isn't it incredible?
Oh my god. Okay, I won't eat too much of this. We'll save it for after the show.
You guys will get to try it
Yes.
later, so don't worry.
But, so actually a lot of different companies are trying to come up with ways.
I just double dipped.
Oof.
Sorry.
A lot of different companies are trying to come up with ways to make all natural but synthetic vanilla. So what I'm trying to say here is,
Okay.
is basically create the vanilla flavor, the vanillin, but make it all natural. What they're trying to do, we have one company, Evolva, managed to create a compound called vanillin that we were talking about, grow not on a vine, but rather in a culture of synthetic yeast. And because it's in a culture of synthetic yeast, that still makes it all natural. And so you have all these like kind of funny workarounds to get to the
Evolva?
Evolve.
That's what they went with?
EVOLVA.
Okay.
Yeah. And so basically you have all this like engineering, bioengineering going on to try to create.
Well, I, for one, welcome the brave new world in which vanilla tastes like vanilla and other flavors are interesting and exciting. I mean, I've had balsamic vinegar ice cream. I've had all kinds of
Wasabi ice cream.
wasabi. I welcome this new world that we're going to live in.
Yeah. So do you feel like we got you from point A to point B? Actually, to point Z, really.
Yeah, exactly. To point M for
Madagascar.
Yeah, it's so basically. But what's going, just to review, is Madagascar is. So how is the debt going to impact the vanilla industry specifically?
So specifically, there's been a huge amount of destruction, and so the government financing and all sorts of other things. There have been problems in terms of rebuilding a lot of the country that's seen these horrible disasters from these cyclones, and so that sort of effort to get a lot of these vanilla farms back online, to get a lot of these plantations back up and running, has been a challenge.
And it'll be even harder as the dollar rises to pay back these
exactly.
bonds.
And actually, a lot of the vanilla producers, the ones that are still around in Madagascar, have been able to make quite a decent living on the vanilla bean. Specifically, they have much nicer homes, and they're able to build their homes out of concrete rather than the palm that they used to build it out of. And so there have been significant gains in Madagascar because
It must be so nice there when everything's blooming. Like the whole fields must smell like vanilla. And this, you have to like ferment this and roast this, right?
You have to dry it. There's a really long process for vanilla. You see how this concentrated supply chain, specifically for food, where we get a lot of our food from, can be heavily impacted by something like the dollar or rising rates. And Professor, do you have any takeaways here?
Well, I think, as you were saying before, what's the incredible thing is how the world of farming manages to regenerate itself from disaster. I think you'll get exactly the same here. I think that, it's just part of the cycle. And if anything, what you'll probably find is the cost of dollar funding going up, making the whole thing much more efficient, so that in 5 to 10 years' time, this won't be a problem again.
And there have been a lot of booms and busts. What are you doing?
I just, listen, I just want to have vanilla
you
on
are
my
so,
vanilla.
This is so pretentious right now. Oof.
That's a vanilla experience like no other. I don't know why I'm doing an ad.
There have been a lot of booms and busts in the vanilla
Sorry.
cycle in terms of pricing. So we have seen spikes before. This is a much more significant spike that we've seen in recent history. All right, well, that wraps up the main part of the show. Let's get to our next segment. I want to welcome on Jake Merl to the show for our new segment called Chart Attack.
Welcome back, Jake.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. So I'm here today to talk about the Smart Money Index and why it's turning heads in the investment world right now.
Okay.
For those of you that aren't familiar, smart money is just a fancy word used to reference institutional investors. And so it's common for these large and experienced investors to trade stock in the last hour of the trading day compared to, let's say, newer retail investors who tend to trade stock in the first 30 minutes of the trading day. And so the smart money index takes the difference between the two, and this reflects what the institutional investors are doing compared to the retail investors. And as it turns out, this is a pretty good indicator of the direction of the market. So if we look at a 10-year chart, you can see the smart money index correlates pretty nicely with the S&P 500. But if you notice, the two have diverged this year as the smart money index has fallen off a cliff. You can see the dramatic fall using year-over-year data of the smart money index versus the Dow going back 25 years. The index has taken a nosedive down to 2008 levels. So obviously, you shouldn't come to conclusions just based on one indicator, but I think it's a strong data point that deserves some attention.
Why is that smart money?
Yeah.
So usually large, experienced investors tend to buy stock later in the day, and more emotional driven, jumpy, excited investors want to buy right at the open. And so so the theory is you take the difference between the two, and it actually correlates pretty nicely with the S&P 500.
Has it been considered a leading indicator at all? I mean, because that is such a divergence.
Yeah, no, it is a really big divergence. It's basically a trend-based indicator. And actually, most of the purchases of U.S. equities recently have been from U.S. corporations doing stock buyback programs, and they're not allowed to purchase stock in the last 30 minutes of the trading day. So this index is almost a reflection of rather institutional versus retail, but maybe institutional versus U.S. corporations.
I'm curious what Roger, I'm still trying to develop my view on this. Roger, what do you think?
There is another element too, which is that we've seen about 2, maybe 3 trillion has left the sort of the active managers, which are the smart money, and gone to the passive world. So there is an element we've got to overlay on all of this, where is the money now, or is the driving force behind the market now the rules-based funds, the algo funds, etc. And the smart money wasn't that smart because it was underperforming for a long time. So, maybe part of this is to do with that, although it still wouldn't explain why you get the sudden divergence over this reasonably short recent period of time.
And I should mention, corporate buybacks have been going on for quite a while, for several years now. So that can't be the entire difference, because this is really a 2018 phenomenon that we're seeing.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, to echo Roger's point, I'm just skeptical about any group known as the smart money, given how badly institutional investors have done. I mean, like let's be honest, so many of the smart, it's like this whole idea that there's smart money and dumb money. It seems a little passé, I gotta say.
I still think that there's something. I mean, the fact that it has tracked pretty closely, there is something unusual going on, and so that's just something that investors should be a little bit wary about. Would you say?
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not a big fan of the whole smart money versus dumb money terminology, but you can look at the correlation, and it is a really strong correlation going back over the past 10 years.
All right. Well, again. Not necessarily, this is my standard story to Jake, not necessarily convinced, but you make a compelling case. And your point isn't that the stocks are going to crash, it's just that this is something that people are perhaps a bit worried about.
Right, it's just one data point. You should use dozens, if not hundreds of data points to build your framework. And so you should just take this into consideration.
Well, I just use one, that's what makes me the dumb money.
I mean, it's something that's worth a deeper dive.
Yes.
That's what it is. All right, well, that does it for this week's Knock-On Effect.
So.
Thank you guys, all of you. And you can join us next week on Thursdays.
Yes, we have a new episode every Thursday. We release a podcast version under Real Vision Presents. If you want to, we'll dig into a little more detail, find out Justine's favorite ice cream flavor. And then the video version is posted every week on Real Vision and on realvision.com/knock-on-effect.
And at that exact website, you can sign up for your 14-day free trial. So
yeah, it's a great deal. Jake, you want to give a plug for the trial?
Yeah, you guys should check it out.
All right, let's eat the ice cream.
All right. Jake, you want a spoon?
Yeah, sure.
Do you share spoons, or is that?
No.
All right.